and welcome to Superbwoman Sundays at 7. I'm your host, Janet Neal, the founder and queen bee at the Superbwoman Incorporated. Very glad that you've joined us tonight. The reason I do these interviews is because I want you to see examples of superb women. I've been so blessed to meet so many superb women, to be introduced to new ones every day. And I want their stories to be told. I want you to get to know them, to be able to see what it is when we talk about being superb, about being comfortable in your own skin. And when you do that, when you take that time to understand what your gifts, your talents are, and then you craft and live your life according to that, oh my goodness, just watch out. The world needs that energy. The world needs that positive energy. The world needs you. And so I hope that by watching these stories of these superb women, you will be inspired and that you will go back and learn what's important to you and then do that. Be first and then do. It's all about the be. I hope you enjoy this segment and look forward to having you come back for even more. Hello and welcome to Superbwoman Sundays at 7. I'm your host, Janet Neal, and I have with me a fabulous guest, Robbie Holz. Welcome, Robbie.
Thank you, Janet. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. I met Robbie, gosh, what's it been, like 2 years ago, maybe?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Robbie was in New York City, and she was speaking at an event that I was at. And I was, blown away by her story, but also so engaged by her energy. She just has wonderful energy and wonderful gifts to share. And when I was trying to think of, what guests should I have on this season, Robbie's name popped up, and I was absolutely delighted that she could join us. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Janet. My pleasure.
So let me tell you a little bit about Robbie. Robbie is an intuitively guided practitioner of self-healing. And her story is really interesting, where she started off as just a normal housewife who then almost died twice, and went from that to a place where she is now, where she is this healer, where she learned how to not only heal herself, but helps to heal other people. So Robbie, take us through your story because it's an incredible one.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Well, I was a woman who was working. I was kind of career driven, but I had a young child that I was raising. And originally, the story starts where I had a blood transfusion when I delivered my son. Mm-hmm. And the blood transfusion had hepatitis C in it. So I ended up with hepatitis C, which was killing me. Mm-hmm. And the doctors didn't really have any answers for me. So they put me on an experimental treatment. And that experimental treatment almost killed me. So this is twice I survived, but I was left in really bad shape at that point. Mm-hmm. I now had the hepatitis C raging in my body with no cure for it or no treatment. I had since developed chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia as a result of the treatments they put me on. And I couldn't get out of bed for like 9 months. And I couldn't even finish a sentence because I couldn't remember what I was talking about. It had given me temporary brain damage. So I was determined, Janet, to survive because I had this little boy who I knew was too young to remember me. And I can't, as a parent, you can't imagine not being able to raise him and him not even having any memory of you at all. So it was that drove me to find answers. Even though Western medicine didn't have anything for me, I knew there had to be something out there that could help me at least survive. Mm-hmm. So I found out once I started looking that there's all kinds of answers out there beyond Western medicine, and actually ended up healing myself of what the doctor said was incurable at the time. This is hepatitis C back in the 90s. And so I healed myself of the chronic fatigue syndrome, the fibromyalgia, the brain damage, and the hepatitis C. And that put me on this passion of waking people up to the fact that we are very powerful healers. We tend to give our power away when it comes to our healing, and that we just don't realize the role that our minds play in the healing realm. So I also, I mean, there's a little bit of kind of a side story. My late husband, Gary, had gone into the Outback to find a cure for him. He was a physicist, a scientist, and he was had multiple sclerosis, and he had become a quadriplegic, which meant he had no feeling from the neck down and very little movement. And the doctors told him he didn't have much. He had about 6 months to live. So he found out about the Aboriginals, the remote Aboriginals in the Outback of Australia, contacted them. They already knew about him and knew he was coming because of their gifts. Wow. He went into the Outback for about 10 days and came back with feeling in his body that he hadn't had in 7 years, clumsily walking on that airplane. He'd gone in as with a wheelchair, clumsily walking on that airplane, and it dramatically changed his life. And they gave my late husband, Gary, their healing secrets. These are ancient healing secrets. These are at least 60,000 years old. So that set him on a path where he now changed from being a physicist to coming back from the Outback and getting a degree in, he became a doctor of immunology, practicing what they taught him, psychoneuroimmunology, how the mind affects the body and the immune system. And we ended up being married a year later, and we worked together helping people heal, helping people, animals, young children, people. We helped them. In fact, Gary helped people that would have AIDS or stage 4 cancers, because most people don't come to a healer like that until they're desperate. There's nothing left. Right. So we decided, you know, we're helping people, but it's taking so much time to help somebody who has stage 4 cancer. Let's go to the other end of that. Let's teach people how to keep themselves well, but also how to heal themselves so that we can affect more people. Well, Gary passed 10 years ago, but he lived 12 years beyond what the doctors told him he would. Wow. And when he passed, I kind of felt like his story needed to be told. And I got that book in his honor, and it teaches the Aboriginal healing secrets. But honestly, Janet, I didn't feel like I had any writing skills, like I had a clue how to write. I hate writing. I mean, if you're going to give me a test, make it multiple choice or true and false, but don't put an essay question in there, you know. But I knew that I just felt passionate that this information needed to get out. And so I found people who could help me. As you know, it takes a village. And there are people who can help me with the computer stuff, you know, with the writing. There's always an editor. There's structural editors. I mean, there's people there that will help you. And now I've written actually 3 books, and the first 2, Secrets of Aboriginal Healing, and then the That's so impressive.
I know, right? I just subtly kind of moved that.
There you go, yeah. And the second book, the Aboriginal Secrets of Awakening.
Oh, I'm upside down.
That's even more impressive. Yeah.
Right, there you go.
Yeah. So I wrote those books to help people. And now they both won awards, and they're in at least 40 countries, from Africa to Slovenia to Korea, and they're translated in a number of languages. But what was, I think, surprising to me is that here I am, never been trained in writing, hate writing, and yet I managed to get a couple of books out there that are really popular, and they've won awards. And what has driven that, Janet, is this passion to help people and to get that word out. That's really what's behind it. And it's like, if you have that passion and that drive, you'll find the right people to help you. It'll just show up, and they do.
Yeah. Well, you know, and you had mentioned before we met here that you were having a few computer problems today, and that you just asked for help, and here you are working on your computer. So great example of, asking. I think we forget to ask.
I think that's huge. I think that there's a lot of help available to us on the other side of the veil. Right. And I know that there's no way that those books could have gotten into 40 countries if I wasn't asking for help and intuitively following the guidance.
Yeah.
My mind isn't designed to know how to do that. And I think that's where a lot of us get into trouble, is we're trying to use our minds, which are very powerful tools, but we're using it exclusively where we should be using this higher consciousness this guidance from the other side, that internal wisdom, that intuition, using that to follow that to guide you. And then the mind is a support tool.
Yeah. So let me go back to this whole thing about you not liking to write. I got that came across loud and clear. And yet you did it anyway. So was that something that was unique to you, or is that something that throughout your life you don't want to do something but you do it anyways if you feel it's the right thing?
Apparently I do. I didn't forget about myself. Well, here's the story, Janet. I've been asking, what's the highest vision of my soul? What's the highest vision of my soul? And I just got this intuitive hit, 3 books. And I about fell off my chair because it's like, I don't like to write. I've never had a single class in writing. I've never had any training. But what I realized is, if you feel passionate about it, it's almost soul driven, that you feel this desire, and especially to help people.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find that you have the tools necessary to do what you need to do. I'm very organized. I have this skill, I have that skill, and you put it all together, and then you hire people or bring in people to help fill the gaps.
Right.
That makes a big difference. But what I had to do was I had to release this, I'm not trained, I'm not equipped, I'm not smart enough, I don't have the right contacts, I don't have enough money to pull this off.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of that. Everybody has a unique voice, they have a unique story, they have something to teach, and everybody learns at different levels. And so maybe somebody can learn from me, but they have a harder time following what a person with 2 PhDs has to say. It just, everybody has a unique voice and a unique way of saying something, and unique experiences. I think that's what I've learned, is I have unique experiences.
Yeah.
So just trust that if you feel that desire inside and it feels right,
mm-hmm.
that's the difference. And there's a difference between the mind driving you and this inner wisdom. Mind always tell you should, you have to, you need to. Whereas when it's in inner wisdom, it just feels right. It just feels right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can attest to that. This show was one of those instances where I had this concept of a superb woman. I'd been meeting, I wanted to get the concept out there. I felt that this was my calling. This is my unique gift, is to be able to put this out into the world. And okay, how am I going to do this? And the thought came to me, do a show. And I'm like, I don't know how to do a show. And I had learned from experience to listen to that little voice, to listen to that intuition. And here we are today.
Yeah.
But
did you find then that how did you get to the next point then? Did you sort of kind of piece it together?
Yeah. Back to what you were talking about is the first step is taking a look at, like, okay, well, what do I know?
Yeah.
What do I know? What skills do I have? And I'm a big believer in starting from where you are.
Yes.
And so that's where I started. I was like, okay, well, what do I know about doing a show? Well, the only thing I knew at the time was Google Hangouts. And so I was like, all right, well, let's use Google Hangouts. And then just, ask for guidance on how to do this and who am I supposed to interview. And then I would go to a meeting and I would meet the most amazing women and go, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly who I need. And then they would be available for the show. So, and I thought I was going to do 3 shows, and this is about 75 now. So,
wow, congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank you. Yes. Well, let's get back to you.
Yeah.
So, one thing you were talking about is you have had these unique experiences. So you too went in to work with the Aborigines, correct?
I did. I was blessed to participate in ceremonies with Aboriginal women in the Outback of Australia. And I think that the ones that, that we're talking about, the ones that Gary was exposed to, that they knew he was coming, they're telepathic. I mean, they really do have healing gifts. They're very advanced in many ways. And that's why they gave their ancient healing secrets to us. Not that they're crazy about giving their their cultural secrets away to the white man who has done so much harm to them. But they really felt that it was time that this information got out there because we really don't understand how healing works. We were really missing the mark. And so that's why they gave this healing information to Gary. He was a highly well-respected, he was a physicist and an inventor, and he had a lot of respect internationally. And so he could take that information and take it out into the world. So I think that they knew to give it to him, and that it did get out into the world. It is now affecting people all over the world. And it's so interesting to me, Janet, that whether people are in Africa or they're in Korea or they're in Russia, the truth resonates. And people read that book and it resonates with them. So we wrote that book so people don't have to go into the outback to be healed. They can learn that ancient wisdom themselves and put it to practice themselves. And of course, it's wrapped around this very fascinating story about him going into the outback. And that's was the intention, is for people to understand, look at, this is how healing works. It involves the body, mind, soul. It's not just a body. The emotions are very heavily involved. And how to become aware of that, but then turn things around. Now that you know that, how do you heal something? So it's done really well. And the second book, to me, the awakening book, that's when it gets really fascinating, is when Gary comes back from the outback and discovers that he has these healing gifts. And we tell these healing stories, whether they're a little child who is blind, or a dog that broke its spine that was going to get put down, and taking it into, and then my stories are woven into that as well, how I almost healed. And then I learned how I have healing abilities. We all have healing abilities. It's just opening up to those gifts. So, to get that out there, to get that information out there, whether it was in a book form or speaking in front of people, I think I had to do what you did. Like you said, what do I know now? And I just kept breaking it down into small enough pieces. Okay, I can do this step. This is the next step. And staying focused on that end result, staying focused on that goal, but just keep breaking it down so that it wasn't overwhelming, that my mind didn't get paralyzed in the process, and trusting that inner guidance along the way.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And just to go back to the point about how you started the conversation, that you had the Hep C, that you had all these things. Was that cured?
I healed all of it. I cured all of it. And the doctors kept telling me, you can't cure that. This was back when they didn't believe you could cure it. And I cured all of it. And the Aboriginal, their healing methods are tremendously powerful in teaching you how to do that. I didn't know about their healing practices until I had actually cured myself, but it ends up being the same thing. It's the same process. Wow. And so the doctors were really kind of surprised by that. I happen to live in the Seattle area, and they're doing a lot of research on hepatitis. I mean, this is where you want to be if you have hepatitis. And these were the experimental treatments they put me on. Doctors were always following me. I was one of those that had a really thick medical file. I could pick it out of the wall. I already knew which one was mine up there. But the researchers followed me for years, and they continue to test me every year, and it's been cured. It really amazes them.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Yeah. So you had talked about a number of things in what you just went through, but one of the things you had alluded to were the people who have helped you, and that's something that I have found in talking to all the superb women that I have, that there's common qualities. One is you're comfortable in your own skin because you've taken the time to understand who you are, what's important to you. But another one is realizing you can't do it by yourself, that it takes a tribe, as I call it. So who has helped you on your path?
I like that, it takes a tribe. Well, the first person who really helped me the most, I think, was Gary, because he came back from the outback and realized he had healing gifts, and he was helping people with things that they seemed miraculous, but they seemed miraculous to us because our minds couldn't believe that stuff can happen on a daily basis. Right. And I think that what Gary helped me open up to was limitless possibilities. And that's so important because our minds tend to be very limiting. And what conditioning have you grown up with? And Gary opened my eyes to tremendous possibilities. And he also opened me up to the fact that we have help from the other side of the veil. if you will, that, everyone has a guardian angel. Everybody, no matter what your belief system, everyone has at least one, and that they want to help you, but they need permission to step in. And it's about learning how to work with them and asking for permission and then allowing them to help. It's tremendous. It's a big game changer. That's what the second book, The Awakening book, describes, is how I wake up to the fact that there's so much help available to me, and they can help me go so much farther than what I could ever do on my own. Yeah. So Gary woke me up to that, and that they want to help, but they need to be invited. That's the key.
Mm-hmm. Who else? Anybody else?
Oh my gosh. Like you said, it takes a tribe. It's so interesting how when you need something, it forms. It just appears. Mm-hmm. I really had no confidence in myself as a writer. I had no clue. Mm-hmm. And there was this serendipitous meeting with a friend on the beach, and she was telling me that she was starting a writer's group. And I said, I have a feeling I'm supposed to join that, And it was that beautiful group of writers that supported me and helped me realize how to write and how to get the help that I needed. And a couple of those women, they're tremendous, passionate writers, and they helped me realize how to break it down and to find this is what you need. You need somebody who can help you with the structure, who can help you with the editing. Mm-hmm. And a couple of them actually helped me write an online course and the second book, Christiane Howard, brilliant writer. So it's just when you have a passion and it's soul driven, it's just fascinating watching how the pieces will fall into place and the people will come into your life. So I think that writers group was phenomenal at helping me recognize the system that it takes to get that book out and how you do it and how I self-published it, the first book originally, The Secrets of Aboriginal Healing. And then they're like, well, you need to submit it for awards. I'm like, I didn't know that. So I submitted it for awards and it won a bunch of awards. And they said, well, now you need to go to New York and, you've won these awards. You need to go to the book expo. And that's where I met my book publisher. And I had this beautiful book that had won awards and I handed it to him and he wanted to publish it and he was able to take it so much bigger. So it's like you just keep finding people for the next step. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I probably should say my publisher. Yes.
Well, we probably could go on another hour or two.
Yes. Yes.
All of the people. Yeah, it is amazing. And I think it's when you are open to the mm-hmm. possibilities that I believe that the answers are always there.
Yes.
But we can't see them until we're ready to be open to them. So,
you know what I tell people? My job is to just get my mind out of the way. Honestly, just get the fears, get that mind out of the way, because our minds tend to be very negative and fear-based. And so my job is to just keep it on board, following that guidance. I love the vision of putting my guides, my help, my intuition, my this higher consciousness behind the wheel, and then scooting my mind out like a dog hanging out the car window. It doesn't know where it's going, but it's pretty darn excited. And just following that guidance, but not trying to control it, letting this higher consciousness guide me. And then just having this curiosity, because I've seen so many times, Janet, and I suspect you have too, so many times you're like, I don't know how in the world this is going to happen, but I'm really darn curious to see how it does. And it does. Yeah. So again, I'm like that dog, really curious and pumped, but just fascinated.
I absolutely love that image. I am going to go find a picture of that and put it by my desk because I think that's a beautiful image. Oh,
yeah. Get out from behind the wheel. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Fabulous. So another thing that I have noticed as a trait with Superbwoman is that they have let go of shoulds, the things that contain the guilt, that contain the judgment. So what about you? Are there some shoulds that you've let go of in your life?
Oh, I think we're constantly letting go of shoulds, aren't we? But I'm getting much better. I was raised Catholic, and so there's a lot of guilt if you don't should,
Right.
And I'm learning. What I'm learning, Janet, is, and this is what I teach people, is start controlling your mind rather than your mind controlling you. Because our minds tend to use us and abuse us, and we're very conditioned, and it's autopilot. We don't even recognize it. Right. So I'm aware that when there's a should going on, that's the mind. And that's a big difference. It's and it's doing it out of fear, trying to control situations out of fear. So I really am more conscious of the shoulds and let go of those. I get a lot of people who come to me and a practitioner, or I want to be a writer or whatever, but I feel like I should take this certification, or I should. It's like, I'm not getting that you should. I'm getting that you already have what you need. You already have the skills and the information. You don't need the initials after your name. That's a big should that I think a lot of people have. We've been trained to believe that we need that. It's like, if you already have that information, you already have those abilities, trust that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Another thing that I have noticed with superb women is that gratitude seems to play a big role in their life. How about you?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it keeps coming back to gratitude. And just as an aside, as if gratitude isn't awesome enough as it is, gratitude has a healing response on the body. It has a different chemical response that helps the body heal faster. So gratitude is like this. It's just magical. The more I go on my path, the more I recognize how gratitude plays a huge part in my life. No matter what the situation is, you can always find something to be grateful for. And that's what you've got to, that's another way to control that mind when it wants to go off into its negativity or its resentment or whatever. You can always find something to be grateful for, even if it's simply, well, they're teaching me what I don't want to be. You know, there's always something there. But I think I've become more and more grateful for even the simplest things, because I think that's something that a lot of us take for granted. And I love that the Aboriginals have such beautiful wisdom. They're so advanced in so many ways. And they're teaching me how it's the simplest things that can bring you the greatest joy. When you're outside and it's warm and you feel that gentle breeze on your face, that just feeling the gratitude for that, or that songbird, or the clouds in the sky, which is just artwork continually moving. It's the laughter at Thanksgiving, watching the little 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds play together. My heart was just bursting with gratitude being able to watch that. I think gratitude is huge. It is huge. And it will turn that mind around, because it's really about learning how to control that mind and get out of this headspace, this ego mind with its stuff and its conditioning, and coming from the heart. That's really what matters. And gratitude can shift you so fast. So I think you're right on with gratitude. I think it's like I said, it's magical. It's powerful. It's like one of those cleaning products that does everything, I don't know.
That's fabulous. Another picture.
It does windows, it does everything. But gratitude does everything.
That's wonderful. Well, I could go on for a long time talking to you. But tell us what's next with you. What's coming up?
I'm currently, I just finished writing the third book. There you go. And I got another one behind it, but the third book is with the publisher. It's how to work with your guardian angels. And I think it's going to be very powerful. But the main thing I do is I do consultations with people. I do 1 hour. That's all I need is 1 hour to help them recognize how they've been creating this illness and how to turn it around. I want to empower them and help them recognize how to do it. So I do one-on-one consults with people, how to recognize what your soul's intention is, what your soul's mission or passion, the soul's voice, helping them understand that. And they're all tied together. What are you here to learn? And what's your journey really about? And it all happens in an hour, and it's transformational. And that's my passion, is waking people up and getting them away from this painful stuff of the mind and start living a more joyful, healthy, happy life.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm going to give you a testimonial right now. So I have talked with Robbie a couple of times now, and I will tell you that dun, 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 my book, The Superb Woman, really an outcome of having the conversation with Robbie, because it was her encouragement and training on how to talk to my guides on what's important, and just learning how to trust that made I'll have to do a whole show on just how this came about, because it's really fabulous.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it involves Paris and cathedrals and people showing up at the right time that I thought I would never meet. So I do want to thank you because you did play a role in that. I think you coming into my life also helped play a role. So I'm here to tell you the real thing. So we are going to have a slide at the end of this with contact information. So please reach out to Robbie because she really is great. And her books are fabulous too. And I would have shown you actually the book because I have a book, but it's so good that I lent it out to somebody else. So I apologize for my very low tech pictures here.
Oh, I think it's priceless. I'm inspired. I want to rush out and buy those little tiny books. So.
Yeah, there you go. So thank you, Robbie, so much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Janet. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. You're very inspiring in so many ways.
Oh, thank you. And thank all of you for joining us today. And come back again next week for another interview with another superb woman. And until then, have a superb week. Take care.
Bye.